What is chronic absenteeism? What does that mean?
Oh, there's fancy definitions, I think. But for me, I always think about it like this. So I always call it like sort of the 10% rule.
Okay.
Which means let's pretend we've been in school 180 days. If you've missed more than 10%, you are considered chronically absent. And that's why I said it's kind of tricky, right?
Yeah.
But that's really what we're talking about.
All right. And so with chronic absenteeism, there's the obvious impact, academic impact, because students are literally missing class. They're missing, things that they need to be learned. But I suspect chronic absenteeism goes beyond just, I missed note taking, or I missed a test, or whatever. What are some other effects of chronic absenteeism?
I think that I would love to talk about the first one, though, as well.
Okay.
In the fact that, especially when you get into high school in Oklahoma, you actually have to attend class, like a minimum amount of time to get a grade. So I want to say that. I think people forget. It's really important.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about absences, it doesn't matter if they're excused or unexcused. That all kind of gets wrapped up into that.
That's a great point.
Right? So I wanted to mention that. But then on the other end, I do want to say that, and Faith, you can weigh in, but one of the things that we notice a lot is like, just like us, like when you miss one day of work, it makes it easier. You know what I mean? It kind of makes it harder to go back. You keep missing like work and work and work. The same thing is true with school. So when you start to be absent more and more, you do feel disconnected from that school community. You feel disconnected from your friends, right? You're so behind on your academics that it's hard to get caught up. So it definitely has a ripple effect when it comes to not just your grades, but in like your social relationships, which can then trigger things like anxiety. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trigger those other things.
Yeah. Faith, you run into this at all, the anxiety and the disconnect?
Absolutely. And I think we do. I think it's great that Stephanie called out it doesn't matter if it's excused or unexcused. There's a misnomer around that. Parents think that missing school for a doctor's appointment is an excused absence, and really an absence is an absence. And so kids really, if they have a lot of, when they're chronically gone, there's developmental milestones that they miss academically and socially and emotionally. And all of that combined can create a ball of anxiety, which just kind of persists and, becomes a greater issue if we don't take care of it beforehand. And I know we see, and I think Stephanie can kind of speak to this, is that if between kindergarten and second grade, if we're not kind of addressing those issues by the time kids get to third grade, it can really become a really significant issue that also has a larger trajectory for when they're going to graduate high school. So it's a big deal. We need to head it off early on in their school life versus, waiting till they're in high school or older to kind of address.
Yeah. And not to oversimplify, but I assume the more students miss, the tougher it is to turn the bus around, to get back on track.
Oh, there's a big correlation. And like you said, I think it's really important. I used to be, a long time ago, a kindergarten teacher. And so I imagine, right, and I even remember being a kindergarten teacher, it's easy to think it's only kindergarten. It is literally only pre-K, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's okay if we take off and go to the zoo or whatever, right? But it's really important. I don't think they realize how much content is covered when we miss, but not just that. It is that routine, right? It's that routine of being there and knowing what to do. So it also affects like our behavior, right? Like, so if you've been out of school a long time and you're only 4 and you come back, there's a big adjustment again every time, which is stressful for the kid and the family.
Yeah. I used to teach high school many years ago, and I remember running into similar situations on the other end of the spectrum. Even if I had students that I knew were academically responsible, but if they missed so many classes, there was just a disconnect between me and that student. I mean, I just didn't interact with them as much. And, it's just unfortunate because I felt like that was just, that's not only an important part of their lives, but it was an important part of my life too, as their teacher. So I liked having them there and having them there consistently. Why are people chronically absent? What are some of the causes of it?
Oh, there's so many. And I mean, it can be anything from a parent illness. A lot of times I think that people think it's actually a student illness, but a lot of the time is a parent illness, right?
Yeah.
They're having difficulty getting their student to school because of their own, right, like personal parent needs. A lot of the time, though, I would say a big barrier is transportation. And you're like, how can that be? We have school buses, right? There's specific parameters around like where the bus can pick up and all of those things. And one of the challenging things in Tulsa is just finding transportation, right? In Tulsa, it is often challenging for our families. So I think that's a big one. Another one is students that are experiencing like a displacement from their homes or homelessness. And so not having a home, can you imagine? Is a huge barrier to attendance, right? Those are some of our most vulnerable students. Their parents are experiencing a pretty, difficult time in their life. They don't have a house, and getting to school often is not, right, like starts to fall off that list.
Yeah. What happens as far as the transportation situation goes with unhoused kids? How is that addressed? How is that handled?
And if they will reach out to our office, if parents and families, we really do have a plan and we can help you. We have transportation available for those very people. But I think parents don't know. That's what I was going to say, right? I think they don't realize that we're going to hop in and help them if we know about it. And what often happens is we just don't know, right? Like we don't know why they're absent, right? And we don't know what's going on. And we actually have lots of availability for transportation for students who are experiencing displacement and homelessness.
I suspect there's a little bit of hesitation there on the part of students who are in that situation. They may not want to offer that piece of information readily.
Yeah.
Well, and I think some of the schools get real creative about how to get kids to the buildings. Like I know there's been the walking school bus where parents get together and they walk together to school. So there are always, sometimes if parents just reach out and ask, there are creative ways schools will engage in to get kids in schools because they want them there.
Yeah. When I was in junior high, I walked to school, and it was a long, long time ago, and I did have to walk uphill both ways in the snow. But I mean, I know back then there were environmental conditions. Here in Oklahoma, I mean, it gets pretty cold in the wintertime. And you mentioned the
walking school bus.
Yeah. I'm guessing walkers are some that do face particular challenges in especially making it to first hour.
Your high school, you have the high school mind on you. But I would say that our attendance, you are correct when you're measuring attendance. That is one of the time periods where we do have difficulty, especially around inclement weather. We have pretty low numbers when it's below, like very, very cold. And as you know, Oklahoma is fun. It's all the weather or raining really hard or anything like that. So those affect our attendance as well.
Yeah. And ironically, I think when they return to school, there is another set of problems, this re-entry back into the school. And Faith, maybe you all see this in your program, especially if someone had been absent, 10 days in a row, 15 days in a row. So we're talking weeks at a time. That day of return has got to be a little uncomfortable. Do you have anything to say about that? Are you seeing that sort of thing out there?
Sure. I know with the families that we're working with, I mean, we are really encouraging them to go to meet the teacher, to go to back to school, to go to the resource fairs that, the schools are holding, to get to meet the teacher and talk with the teacher, because the school is the first large, system that families interface with. So what can we do to make that a positive experience, that they're there to help and support you, to foster your kids' academic growth and success? And how do we get you connected and invested in your school so that it's something that you find safe and helpful and connected? Because I think that when, like Stephanie, when you were saying that families feel disconnected, then they, that inserts information about that can cause anxiety and can cause some negative narration around their school experience. So what can we do to help them? So we really encourage families, like, get out there. We'll meet you at the school. Like, let's walk around and see your classroom, meet your teacher. Here's where the nurse's office is. Here's the closest bathroom. Here's where the cafeteria is. And getting them used to some of the rules that may be going on at each site. Like, I know a big rule this year is the state law that passed around cell phones. So how are we prepping our kids who have had, phones in their face all summer to go, well, from bell to bell, you're not allowed to have that cell phone. And it's not that the school is being, trying to revoke your ability to connect with your peers or get on whatever platform. They're really obligated to do that. So let's figure out what the rules are going into this year for your classroom, for the school, for the district, so we can support and help foster that healthy transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that another reason for a long-term absence besides summer is often students who have had discipline issues, right? So students who are suspended.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine that also sort of compounds attendance issues in that they're often really nervous because they were clearly, right? Like there was a reason that there was a suspension, right? So our office has to intervene. We have a lot of students who their suspension is over. They could have gone back to school. Yeah. And they're having difficulty with that transition. So even over the summer, our office reaches out to students who maybe were what I would consider, like you said, like more than 10 days suspended at the end of the year, reaching out saying, hey, why don't you just come in and let's talk about what happened. Let's make sure you're going to go to the right school next year. Let's, start off on the right foot. So that's just another reason I was thinking when we think of this reentry. And of course, back to school time is anxious for everyone, right? Like there's been this huge break, right? Even teachers, I told them that secretly I'm glad I'm a 12-month employee because I don't have the before the first day back jitters that happens, right? Like even for educators. So I think that that's one of the things to just think about is that there's this whole reentry is challenging at the beginning of the school year for a lot of our students, a lot of our teachers and parents. Getting back to that routine, it's really is a tricky routine to get back into.
Yeah.